Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my video series, Forced into Divorce. If you are new here, then welcome. If you have watched part 1, then it's nice to see you again. The purpose of these videos is to look into the psychological effects of divorce on children in varying stages of life. The kids are often the ones who experience the most significant loss, and they must learn to grow up in an environment where divorce is constructive and not destructive. Part 1 looks at divorce through the perspective of family structure and communication as it related to my personal experience. If you would like to learn more, then I highly recommend that you check out episode 1 out. Today, I will be discussing some of the methods that I use to cope with my parents' divorce, as well as the outlook of divorce as it relates to our current societal climate. The way that children cope with their parents' divorce says a lot about how resilient and brave they are. And in a similar way that part 1 was presented, I will be incorporating research that I have conducted on the matter and how it relates to my experience coping with my parents' divorce. My name is Mike Bachman. I'm 22 years old, and I was forced into divorce when I was 6 years old. The various psychological effects that divorce has on children has been well documented in part 1, but how do children cope with their parents' divorce? Is it something that they keep to themselves, or are they actively seeking outside help? I want to expand on the idea of clear communication as a coping mechanism for children. I came across an article written by California-based journalist Scott London that discusses the power of dialogue. Much of what he talks about can be applied to establishing proper communication between both parents and between the child and the parent. London says that, quote, being able to overcome conflict, find common ground, and build meaning can help us gain new perspectives that will strengthen bonds with others. This is so important for not only the parents to understand, but for the child to understand as well. In addition to London's article, I came across a few stories published by Rhiannon Lucy Coslett of The Guardian. She set out to meet people whose parents divorced in each decade following the Divorce Reform Act of 1969. The one similarity between each encounter that she had was each child of divorced used communication to cope. There is no shame if a child feels angry or confused about the situation. We may not want to open cold wounds with our parents, but it's important to have heart-to-heart conversations with them. When the time is right, transparency is important in order to build stronger family bonds and understand the bigger picture. This was never a thought for me when I was growing up, but there are times when the topic may have presented itself with my mom or my dad, and it never seemed like the right time, but I do think that it is important, especially when the situation works itself out down the road. Effective interventions for children of divorce are essential for the betterment of their growth into adulthood. I was a very emotional kid at 6 years old. I was sensitive to a lot of things even before my parents' divorce, and I still am now. With all this extra weight, though, it was very difficult to process my emotions and explain how I felt. I was enrolled in grief counseling at my nearby church through an organization called Rainbows. They're a nationwide organization that works with children who are grieving from loss, separation, divorce, and death. Group therapy for dealing with problems of children with divorce is viewed as the treatment of choice, according to some experts. It allows children to feel less isolated and connect with others to help normalize those experiences. Even though I found the most enjoyment in the snacks that were served after our sessions, I was able to finally connect with other kids who were going through what I was. Being social at school became very difficult, so this definitely helped in that process. While this did help me understand that I should not be embarrassed by the position that I was in, I was still struggling to accept this new reality in my life. Rather than continue at Rainbows, I began to meet one-on-one with a therapist, but I did not find this much effective at all. As a tween at this point, at 11, 12 years old, I really didn't find comfort in sharing my personal information with an outside source who I did not know one-on-one. With something as fragile as divorce and with what I was feeling at the time, it was once again difficult to really convey my emotions despite the fact that I was in a safe space. However, I do not really remember much of my encounters with my therapist. For me, I found most comfort in the creative arts, specifically music. When I was 8 years old, I was gifted a drum set for my birthday. I had wanted to learn an instrument, being that my brother was involved with the school band and my dad was a piano player himself. And this became the outlet for me to express my emotions. For one, if I was ever feeling angry, I could always just go down to my basement and bang away at the drums. I would go to lessons every Thursday after school at Robbie's Music City in a small, musty back room, and I absolutely loved it. It took my mind off of whatever I may have been feeling at a specific moment, but it just goes beyond that because I truly, truly believe that music is an effective therapeutic tool. Because children have a hard time expressing how they feel, music can help them in identifying these feelings. For me, music was my escape because I was able to now relate to what I was listening to. And it almost forced me to let my emotions out because when you listen to a specific song, it will make you feel a certain way. It will make you feel sad, happy, or angry. That's the beautiful thing about music and the creative arts, and it became my sole focus from there on out. Music also gave me the opportunity to make up lost time with my father. When my dad settled in his new place, he started gigging out with a few bands and would actually let me sit in on a song or two, and it was just really awesome spending that extra time with him and doing something that we both love. I find benefits with group therapeutic practice and using mechanisms like music or playing a sport for leisure. But now I want to look at the state of divorce in the United States and the outlook, because I feel like everywhere you go, you hear the notion that half of marriages end in divorce, and that is simply not true. Over the last decade, the divorce rate has fallen by nearly 25%, and scholars predict that the divorce rate will continue to fall. And this can be attributed to views on modern marriage. It is not principally about your own fulfillment, but now it's more about your children and the idea of staying together. Non-marital childbearing has fallen almost 2% over the last decade as well, and while that might not seem like a big number, it is still substantial. We also see that the share of children being raised in married families is on the rise over the last 5 years or so. To put it in perspective, here are some interesting statistics on divorce from Wilkinson and Finkbeiner. Every 13 seconds, someone in the US gets divorced. This equates to about 2,419,196 divorces per year, and this means that there are 9 divorces in the time that it takes for a couple to recite their wedding vows. More than 554 divorces occur during your typical romantic comedy movie, and the average first marriage that ends in divorce lasts about 8 years. A study published by the Social Science Research Network suggests that the divorce of a friend or close relative dramatically increases the chance that you too will get divorced. And unfortunately, this is yet another trend in my life. After my parents got divorced, my dad's sister, my aunt divorced, and my mom's brother, my uncle, divorced. I had multiple friends come talk to me when their parents were going through a separation throughout middle school and high school. So, is this a coincidence, or is there some truth behind it? Regardless, while the divorce rate may be decreasing slightly, there is a lot of uncertainty regarding the state of divorce as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has actually made it more difficult for couples to file for divorce because of statewide lockdowns and the emphasis on staying home. There is a possibility that there will be a slight uptick in divorce once the pandemic ends, but experts see 2 positive trends that are coming out of this year. The first is that reports of marital commitment and stability are up. According to the American Family Survey, 58% of married men and women aged 18 to 55 said that the pandemic has made them appreciate their spouse more, while 51% of husbands and wives said that their commitment to marriage had deepened. I think that 2020 has taught us that we should not take anything in our life for granted, and people are beginning to appreciate a lot more of what they have. And that includes their loved ones and the relationships that they have. This is demonstrated once again by the AFS, as the share of married people reporting their marriage is in trouble fell from 40% in 2019 to 29% in 2020. The second is that state divorce trends appear to be down. The data collected by the Institute for Family Studies shows that state data from Florida, Missouri, Oregon, and Rhode Island all show declines in divorce during the COVID months. Of all of the bad news that 2020 has blanketed us with, this is definitely a positive sign for families in the United States. I want you to know that your support system is there for you on both sides. I have learned to live with my parents' divorce, and I will say it again. I could not be happier with how my life has turned out to this point. I love both of my parents, and I have the utmost appreciation for the friendship that I have with my step-parents. How I coped with my parents' divorce definitely shaped who I am today. I will leave you with this. God gave us legs to stand back up when we are knocked down, not to sit back and just watch the days go by. You are strong and your family is strong. I hope that these conversations were educational and moving for you. I know that I learned a lot about my experience through the research that I have gathered, and I hope that we can continue to somehow make the negative effects and the psychological effects of divorce on children constructive and not destructive. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and leave a comment below. I look forward to seeing you again in the future, whenever that may be. Take care, everybody.